So I've been canvassing for the past, I think it's been 3 days now, for the fundraiser for Texas trans kids. And I was talking to somebody very recently, like, God, no less than like 15 minutes ago, about Texas and why it's important that we just don't give up on both Texas and the people that are living there. Penny, a cat. And I'm having a hard time finding the words right now to say really what I mean. But I think beyond the fact that people from Texas, LGBT people, trans kids from Texas are still people and still deserve our support no matter where they're from, I think the important thing to remember is that we can't just only expect people to keep running from places. We can't just expect everyone who's trans to relocate out of Texas. On one hand, because it's absolutely ridiculous to even think about the logistics of that. But more importantly, this is a home for these people. When we fundraised for the Red Cross in 2021, after the winter storm, we did so because it was the right thing to do, but we also did so because it was important to us. Like Yos's family is from there. Like Yos is from there. And when we fundraised for Texas, we weren't just doing it, and this is just is not the word I should be using there, but we weren't doing it just for the Red Cross and just for these people that we never met. We were doing it for his community. And I think the more important thing to remember is that these kids have a community there. These are where this is the place that they grew up. These are where their friends are. This is where all of their memories and their entire lives are supposed to be. So, to give up and to stop fighting for a better situation for these kids makes their lives worse. It completely uproots them from everything that's important to them. And yes, they're having to deal with absolutely horrible transphobia coming from their states, from their state, but like, I mean, the reason this is so near and dear to my heart is as Texas is passing this bill for these trans kids, Florida is passing their Don't Say Gay bill. And when I worked in Florida before I got sick, the most meaningful job I had was when I was working as a substitute teacher for a public school in South Florida. God. I felt like it was the one place where my work really had meaning, because these kids responded to every attempt that I made to help them with wholehearted enthusiasm. And when I was working there, I felt that I was making a difference in my community. Now, if the Don't Say Gay bill, I don't know if I could ever teach there again. And when I was living there in Florida before I got sick, the intention was for me to go back and get my teaching certification, to go back to school. To go back to school, go back to school and teach. And Florida is unfair to its teachers, and they would have paid me poorly. But my entire life is there. My friends, everything that I've known for the past 28 years of my life is in Florida. And the one meaningful job that I had in Florida is no longer an option for me. And as a transgender person that was living in a right-to-work state, I faced constant discrimination. I was constantly shut out of jobs. And now I see myself being shut out of yet another one. Do I have any reason to go back to Florida? other than the people I care about? Not really. But I think a lot of those people would argue that Florida's worse off for me not being there. And I may be at peace with how Florida treated me. And I like Athens far better. It's definitely a more more my sort of thing. I'm not a beach person, more of a woods person. But that doesn't change the fact that I deserve to be able to teach there. I love teaching. I love these kids. I loved actually doing something that felt like it meant something to someone. And I had all of that ripped away from me. Because some fucking assholes think that I'm a bad influence on their fucking kid. If I can't teach in Florida, I will teach literally anywhere else. But that doesn't help trans kids in Florida. It doesn't help queer kids in Florida. It makes things worse for them to not have a trans teacher. It makes things worse for them to not be exposed to people who might be like them, or people who are radically different than them, and can provide them a perspective that will influence them for the rest of their lives. But you're giving kids a disservice. Not just these trans kids, but all of these kids whose lives we're disrupting with this shit. And it's petty, and it's childish, and it's for all the wrong reasons. And I can sit here and try to find the words to describe this in an eloquent and simple manner, but you know what? As I keep talking, I feel myself getting angrier and angrier, and I don't want to be eloquent. I want to be fucking angry. I want to be angry at these people who turn these children's lives into a political fucking game for their own bullshit. These kids deserve better, and we're going to make sure that they get better. We may not be able to raise thousands of dollars or fix the lives of every single trans kid, but there's over 20 of us that have already signed up for this shit. And we're going to keep working really fucking hard. And even if we ourselves as individuals may not be able to impact some change, I hope that some fucking trans kid out there sees what we're doing and realizes that they can have a future. I hope that they see me happy in my new apartment in a new state with my wife and my best friend and realize that there's a future for trans people. And that they can be anything that they want to be. I've been canvassing for days now, and I've talked to trans people who have done things beyond anything I could even expect for anybody. Like, I've met engineers, artists, scientists, and you know what? I think the best thing that can help these kids right now is not just the money. It's the support. It's having these role models and knowing that they have a future, despite the fact of what anybody tells them. We face discrimination and setbacks and adversity for as long as we've existed. It's always going to happen. The only things we can do is make sure things don't get worse and fight for things to get better. We can't be complacent. We can't just sit there and watch things around us get worse and worse and panic. We have to do something about it. And I'm really proud of my team for everything that they've accomplished. I'm really proud of the people who have responded already and who have made it clear that they want to throw their full weight behind helping these kids. Even if you haven't raised a single cent so far, just the fact that you've signed up and that you're on this list and that you've put your name and your work behind this cause says something to these kids. Because it said something to me. When I had nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, I found out about trans men from a fucking documentary that I was watching at my college, and I walked to the LGBT center looking for answers, and there was the first trans guy that ever showed up there in years. There was nobody there that was like me. But when I had nobody, and when I showed up at that center, I started talking to more people, and I started finding the trans people that were hidden in the woodwork at my university. I looked at the work that they were doing, And I felt all of the range of emotions that somebody feels when they see somebody who has achieved so much, and something that you want to achieve, and that you hope that you could always do. And I saw a trans person doing it. And we got to show these kids that no matter what anybody says, whether it's their community, their parents, the fucking government, what they have to say about trans people is not true. We've always been hardworking. We've always survived, and we've always been resilient, and we will continue to do so.